Welcome back to the Dadcast, a conversation for dads raising sons or daughters with special needs. Today, we're joining the conversation as we were talking about homes, layouts, rooms, and the little things most people don't think twice about. But when you're raising a son or daughter with special needs, you start seeing the home differently. You think about doors, bedrooms, steps, safety, wheelchairs, routines, escape points, and how this space actually functions for your family. And that really led us into a bigger question. How often do we miss the way special needs life affects the other kids in the home? Because siblings feel it too. They see the extra appointments, they notice the extra attention. Sometimes they help more than we really realize. And as dads, that can create quiet guilt. Are my other kids getting enough of me? So today, we're talking about sibling guilt, meaningful time, and how small just us moments can remind every son or daughter in the home that they are seen, loved, and not forgotten. Let's get into it.
I was looking at some house designs earlier this week, and there was a master bedroom layout where they actually had the master bed in the center of the room. And I've never seen anything like it before. I was like, that's kind of interesting. You know, like you could literally walk all the way around the bed rather than putting it against a wall. It was in the middle, and they actually had like a seating area on one side, and the like bathroom was kind of like an open, like it was a master bathroom, but it was kind of an open concept. So it was like kind of this one big room that had the bathroom, some furniture, and then this big master, king bed in the center. It was anyway. So when you said that, it was quite interesting.
Yeah. It's kind of like, remember the old 70s with the lounge pits in the middle? Did you ever see those?
Okay. Yeah.
Like, did you ever see them? It was like this giant, like sunken section of the living room where it was like a circle or octagon, but it was basically where everyone would just kind of sit and lounge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of different, but
it is different. Yeah. Sunken living rooms were definitely a thing.
Yeah.
In fact, I will tell you, Heidi and I lived in a house that had a sunken living room. We were renting in Broken Arrow at the time. And one of the things that her and I have collectively agreed on is that we absolutely loved that house for one main reason. And it was because when we had Landon in his wheelchair, we could put him in the living room and he was contained to that room. So he could wheel around and do whatever he wanted to do, but he was safe.
He couldn't get out.
And he couldn't just access any part of the house. He was in the living room because it was just enough of a step that his wheelchair would just, bumper into it. And her and I both were like, okay, I know they never designed sunken living rooms for the purpose of non-ambulatory kids, but it's very functional way to design a house for families that have kids in wheelchairs.
Isn't it funny how we look at homes differently whenever we're looking at things going, okay, how is my child going to function in this room? Yeah. Or like even when we were picking Lindley's room, her room is literally right by the garage door. And I thought to myself, will she be able to get out in the middle of the night? Mm-hmm. Will she come to our room or will she try to go out the garage? So I put an extra lock on that door just to cover ourselves, because I was like, I don't want her going out in the middle of the garage in the middle of the night. Yep. But even that, I never would have thought about from the sunken living room aspect, how that affects Landon and what you guys would have thought about that.
Yeah.
So interesting. Well, Jeremy, one thing we talk about, when it comes down to actually our kids and stuff like that, we have our kids have got siblings, maybe not everybody's do, but there's a dad out there that's kind of in the same boat as we are. They've got a child with special needs, or maybe they have multiple kids with special needs, but then maybe they've got a child that doesn't have a special need or isn't neurodivergent. And Tara and I have talked about this. Well, what does this mean for for Lindley when she grows up, or is this fair to Maddox, or is this going to be fair to TJ? For us to be primarily focusing on Lindley so much. And there's a little bit of guilt from my end of it. Like, okay, maybe we don't need to do this so much, but we try to try to loop everybody, group everybody in the same thing, and try to give everybody equal opportunities and experiences. And sometimes it's just not right. You can't.
No.
I think we talked with Sean. I can't remember. Is it Sean Medlin?
Yeah, Sean Medlin. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that with him, and he talked about it's a square peg in a round hole.
Mhm.
You just can't do it. But have you ever come across a lot of dads? You can hear TJ in the background. Have you ever heard a lot of? Have you come across dads that have got guilt about siblings, and just kind of what that looks like for those other kids?
Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, that's a topic that comes up pretty frequently, because as men, we've been taught, that there needs to be some sort of, work life balance. And when we dissect what life portion is, we look at our marriages, we look at our kids. And as you said, there's a lot of families out there, a lot of men that will be listening that they may only have that one child. But for many others, there are siblings. And so now you're trying to, quote unquote, balance life and work, and then you're dissecting that, and you're trying to balance marriage and children, and then you dissect that, and now you're trying to balance between your child with special needs and the siblings, and then it just keeps breaking down to the point where a lot of times we do feel very inadequate in how we can quote unquote give equal time, which I know is really one of the things we're going to get into on this call. But we really need to kind of shift our mindset a little bit on what it is we're actually trying to accomplish, and what, when we make those types of statements, what is it that we truly mean by it? What is our end goal, and really helping us move towards that goal?
Yeah, because I mean, we'll tuck one kid into bed, and we'll feel guilty about the others, and you're always dividing your time and your attention and energy, and sometimes it just never feels fair, And
No.
so, if you've ever wondered, are my other kids getting shortchanged because of all of this? That's where we're going to go today. We want to make sure that we address that because it is the elephant in the room, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
If you have kids with other things, so and I know there's a lot of parents that feel like the other kids maybe get the leftovers, when in fact all this is an opportunity for grace filled fatherhood to really come in and fill up the family. And sometimes like you're worried you're creating junior parents from the other kids because maybe you got an older one. It's like, hey, you're gonna have to help me take care of, you know. I know with Maddox when he's in the back seat, Maddox needs you to help take care of TJ, or Maddox, can you make sure Lindley's doing X Y Z?
Oh yeah.
But yeah, you love them all, but you still feel like you're failing sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've experienced that too, where it's like you've got siblings, and we've got one son that's older than Landon, to where there was times where we relied on him, even to your point of, in the back seat, if we're rushed on time, and Landon can't eat on his own, and so there's a lot of times where it's like, hey, will you help feed him this, in the car, and so there are times where we lean on our kids in ways that maybe we should or shouldn't, um,
Mm-hmm.
and how that affects their perspective of their sibling, and even how it affects our interaction with them.
Yeah, because the reality is we want everything to feel fair, and it just isn't. Um, so the lie that I think that most dads probably hear are, if I was a better dad, none of my kids would hurt. How true is that lie?
If I were a better dad, none of my kids would hurt. Um, Being a better dad is not based on your preventing hurt in their life, but rather by being available to treat the wound and demonstrate genuine love and care through it. Our kids will be hurt, they will be offended. How we respond is what establishes our healthy role as a dad. Um, I mean, to me, that's really the point of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it's all about how we respond to things, and I think sometimes we get so overwhelmed with trying to make things fair that you just can't. So, Jeremy, what would be a good like mental checklist for dads to kind of, um, well, let's just do this. Whenever you felt like you're not giving equal time, but trying to do meaningful time with your kids, what is something that you've done to actually help make each moment meaningful for your other kids?
I think one of the greatest things we can do is find, because we all know our kids well, right? And so We know each of them are wired different. We know each of them have different interests. And I think if we can identify something that really speaks to that individual child and create something that surrounds that need, then we can not so much worry about equal time, but intentional time. And I'll share an example of that. When Landon was really young, we had in-home nursing. And my son and I, one Saturday morning, when our nurse showed up, uh, him and I got in the car. We drove down to Brahms. We had a Brahms that was just a few blocks from the house, and we had biscuits and gravy. And it was one of those that was just kind of on a whim. Didn't really put a lot of thought into it, but it's like, I know him and I need to get out of the house. Him and I haven't done anything together. Let's just run down and have breakfast, me and him. And man, it opened up such a great conversation. I mean, at the time, my oldest son would have been maybe 6 years old, 5, 6 years old, and he, at a point where they're talkative and exploring and learning, and so he just opened up, and we just sat there and enjoyed biscuits and gravy over an hour or so of time. And I recognized that week, I was like, you know what? That's an easy thing that I could do with him that gives him space to express whatever he wants to say, whether it's about mom, whether it's about his brother, whether it's about, chores, whatever it's about. It was his time and space to be able to share. And we actually made that a consistent thing we did every single Saturday morning. And became something that he looked forward to as just me and dad time, and he knew that if there was something he needed to share or something, that was a safe place for it. And we did that for a few years. And then of course life happens. We moved away and some things changed and years went by and he's 18 now. But about a year ago, him and I had an opportunity on a Saturday morning and we went down and we sat and had biscuits and gravy just like we used to. And it was just kind of that reminder to me of, and it might look totally different. It could be, throwing a ball in the yard with one of your kids, or it could be going for a bike ride, or it could be, 1,000 different things. But I just encourage men to identify something that gives them space, that they can have you and be alone with you, and be able to just to enjoy whatever it is that they enjoy doing with you. And sometimes it is just conversation, sport, interest, whatever it may look like.
And then sometimes it's spur of the moment, just like that.
Yes.
And do you think that sometimes is sometimes the best? Just, like, hey, I'm going to go grab, I'm going to go grab Max. We're going to run down and get a Coke at Sonic and just sit and chill, or, something like that. Just very not like structured.
Oh, there's tremendous value in that. There's tremendous value. And I mean, you're going to know, you may have just a chaotic day, but you recognize I've got a 30-minute window that I could go do X with this child. And you seize the moment, right? It's like, hey, let's hop in the car and go do this, or, let's walk over here, or let's go here. Yeah. So to me, it's kind of, it's a combination of, and I think this is an important aspect of it, is you need to have some dedicated time, because let's face it, our calendars get full. And if we're not intentional about time with our kids, it's easy to totally miss the opportunity altogether. So I think there's importance in having some structured time, but also seizing those moments that you're talking about, Billy, of just being able to be spontaneous. And I think kids really do enjoy that. They look forward to that. They see that, hey, I'm getting to do something I didn't have planned today.
Yeah. And I wonder though, because I know so I'm a planner. I'm horrible about this, and Tara will get on me. Like, things don't go the way I want them to. And so I kind of get bent out of shape easily about some things. But do you think that there are times when, as dads, we try to overplan?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I mean, and then we have to deal with the disappointment when things don't go how we want them to, and that causes frustration. So how do we prevent, like, as a dad, what is something we also need to keep in mind, that, plan for the unplanned, or is it going to be mostly just, hey, I may have this idea, but we just need to go with the flow?
Well, I'll tell you from personal experience, Billy, there's been just numerous times where I'll map something out in my head or I'll picture something a certain way and it doesn't go anything like I had planned. And let me just say this, thank goodness, right? Because what ends up happening is something far more valuable, far more meaningful. Because when we submit ourselves to one, when we submit ourselves to God's authority, but also just being open-minded. And I think a lot of times as men, we are very task oriented. We're very calendar driven. We're very focused. We see a lot of times in our careers where we have a certain thing that we've got to accomplish. And we recognize that there's this one way that we know how to accomplish it. And so we kind of hone in on that. And I think when it comes to raising our families, we have to view it differently. We have to be willing to be open-minded to what things might look like and how things may go, and that there is more than one way to accomplish something. And sometimes the thing that we set out to accomplish wasn't even the goal. We get into the middle of it and we recognize that, God had something else planned,
Mm-hmm.
that ends up being even more meaningful for our family members.
Whenever we do have that guilt when things don't go the way we planned them to, or let's say that it's just kind of the cost of guilt whenever we can't give our kids that meaningful time that we want to, or maybe that we feel like they deserve. What usually happens to the dad as far as like them showing up emotionally?
They don't.
They don't, and
I mean,
that's a pretty big cost.
well, it is. I mean, we see it all the time. I mean, I look around, and again, I am aware of these things because I live it. Right? I recognize the distraction, the difference between being physically present and being actually present. Right? And we
Mm-hmm.
can get checked out so easily. Seeing men that are just so hyper focused on their phones. They're scrolling, they're reading, they're studying, they're checking emails, they're doing work things, or they're just on social media, or maybe it's not your phone at all, maybe it's alcohol. Maybe you're there, maybe you're attending the sporting event, or you're sitting in the living room, watching a movie with your family, but you've had enough to drink to where you're not even cognitively aware of what's going on, because it's the only way you've known how to respond. I see all the time the amount of distractions that men use to kind of separate themselves from what's going on, even though they're there
Yeah,
physically.
yeah, yeah. And that's just as dangerous as not even being present. I mean, you're not present, but physically, you're like that's. I think sometimes it does more damage than it does. Oh, I'm home, but you're not there.
You're not
I've been
actually
guilty.
home.
Yeah, I've been guilty of that. I think all of us have at some point. But let me read this statement to you. You tell me what you think about the guilt side of this. Siblings feel unseen or overly responsible.
Those are two ends of the pendulum, I feel like. And a lot of times as men, we really struggle to help bring our kids into a healthy balance of these two things, for sure.
Okay, and then this next one: will family culture shaped by apology instead of by blessing? Family culture shaped by apology instead of blessing. And go ahead, thoughts.
Well, when I hear you say that, Billy, it makes me think about the difference of being proactive and reactive. When we're apologizing for something, it's because we reacted in a way that was unhealthy, right? And then when we see families operating in a healthy way, it's a lot of times because the men are more proactive on the front end of being intentional with how they're going to respond. right? And so our family culture is much shapen by the way we either react or respond, proactively or reactively.
Okay. Um, Now let's help some dads reframe here. So, kids don't need equal minutes; they need to know that they matter, and that's kind of what we talked about earlier about just jumping in the car and going and doing something with them.
Mhm.
Um, and then
I mean, I would
what
say
are you,
quality over quantity.
quality over quantity.
I mean, that's something we talk about a lot, right? It's like quality over quantity, you know. But then the other side of that coin is, and this is something I think that it needs to be shared is, and I actually read this in a meme recently, and it's one I've seen numerous times, but I think it's always a great reminder for men is our kids want us to spend half as much on them and twice as much time with them.
Hmm.
And to me, that's an important reminder that we can't buy our way out of this. You know, I think for a lot of men, it's like, hey, I'm busy, I've got work, I'm providing, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna buy this thing for my kid. Um, while those are great and our kids appreciate them, right? What they really want is less things and more of you. And so for me, it is quality over quantity, but there is no substitution for quantity. And don't let things steal the value of quality and quantity time.
What about you and me time? Like what you're talking about, the ritual of going and getting biscuits and gravy with I can't remember your oldest name. Sorry.
Yeah. Uh, no, I know I shared that story already, but it is just important to create something, and here's the deal. Don't look at it as like, oh man, I got to figure this out. I got to determine what it is. You may go do 10 different things with your kid before you have that aha moment of, hey, this is really something myself and them can enjoy together. It may not be the very first thing you go do. It may not even be the 10th thing that you go do, but there's going to be a moment where if you're truly receptive to it, you're going to go do something with your kid, and you're going to see it. You're going to see it on their face. You're going to recognize the joy that they've got, right? And you're going to get joy through that process, and you're going to recognize that's the aha moment of, okay, this is the thing that I need to be intentional about putting on the calendar on a regular basis.
Makes perfect sense. Okay, now let me read this to you, and then react. Ready? God parents all of his kids perfectly. He also gives grace when we can't.
Yeah.
Has there been a time in your life where you've seen that 100%, where he parents us as adults, and then he also gives us our kids to parent as blessings in our lives, but then gives us grace when we can't parent perfectly.
Scripture talks a lot in several places about um, God disciplining us because he loves us. And I think that there are a lot of times where we go through trials and hurt and heartache as a pruning process. Um, when you look at pruning a plant, you're cutting away a lot of things from that plant, which can in the moment be painful, but what it's doing is it's giving room for growth for what's left behind. And this is a clear model that Jesus displayed and actually spoke to his disciples. But I think it's also a clear display that we see in our own lives of I think as every dad on special assignment that's listening to this, they're going to recognize that there's been plenty of areas of pruning that's happened in our lives, and there's been things that have been stripped away and clipped away, and a lot of things that have been painful. But ultimately, what it's doing is it's helping realign us to understand what truly matters, the importance of investing in our kids and raising them in a way that that allows them to thrive in their capacity. And every single one of our kids have tremendous value that they bring to those around us, right? And so, being reminded that a lot of times it is a painful process, but we know that He is gracious, and the fact is that it's not natural for us as men to give grace or be gracious to others. That's something that truly comes down from above, and I think it's just a reminder that we can't give something that we don't first receive. So when I hear you share this phrase, He does care for us perfectly, and He shows us grace, and that's what allows us the ability to extend that grace to others. And really, honestly, Billy, in context to this conversation, it allows us to extend that grace to ourselves. Because if we actually stop and evaluate from this moment back in what our siblings and our kids have experienced, we'll recognize our shortcomings, and I think that's where God's grace is important to receive, especially if you haven't. If you haven't received that grace, then this conversation may not make a lot of sense. But man, there is a Father that loves us, that cares for us, and cares more for our kids than we do. And when we recognize that, we can move forward, knowing that we're going to fail, we're going to make mistakes, but He gives us another day, and we have opportunities to redeem that and build that relationship with our kids day by day.
That's so good. So good. Let me, I'm going to change gears before we offer our men the challenge for this episode. I want to talk a little bit about Dose of Gather. When it comes down to everything we've been talking about on this episode, what can men who come together, what can men who come to the Dose conference expect to hear, when it comes down to being a better dad?
Yeah, Billy, I want to encourage any guys to go on an RSVP and join us for that conference in June. But I think a big part of it is one of the main sessions that we're going to have this year is helping men understand how to delight in their kids, and I think that's just a big component of how men can be encouraged. And sometimes we don't always see our kids in the right way, right? And so there's numerous things that can be an encouragement for men to come. One, just how to better serve our families, resources, tools. There'll be numerous different conversations that are going to happen that day in how to just be effective in our role as a dad on special assignment.
Maybe not just in the large group, but also in the breakout sessions. I may learn something.
Oh, I learn a lot in the breakout sessions. Whenever you can have tabletop discussions, and you're in a room full of men, but sometimes just having a brief conversation with a group of guys at your table over a specific question, that's a lot of times where we can learn the most, right? And hearing the stories from other dads and seeing what they're facing and how they've responded can not only be an encouragement to us and how we respond, but be an encouragement to those that are around us. Because let's face it, none of us have it figured out. We're all still learning, and there's something really neat about a group of guys getting together and being vulnerable and sharing those shortcomings sometimes, right? Of, hey, I don't have this figured out. That's why I'm here. what do you guys know that can help me be better? And this group has definitely helped me be a better dad.
I heard this week from a pastor friend of mine talking about like a scale of 1 to 10, and 10 being like as close as you can be to living like Jesus, and then there's like 1 through 9. And a lot of times, dads just need to take that step, saying, "Okay, maybe I don't have all this figured out, and it's just I've got to take that next step." So maybe getting him from 1 to 2, you know, and maybe this DOSA conference is that next step for him. What do you think about that?
I completely agree. One of my favorite quotes, and I actually have a metal sign that I'm going to be hanging in my office that says this, and I think it kind of sums it up. It says, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step." And there was a moment in my life where, man, I couldn't get off zero. I didn't know how to move forward. And I look back now and I recognize that I'm a lot farther down the road than I ever was. But I also recognize there was that one moment where I just took a deep breath and I took the first step and moved forward. And I really believe Dosa Gather can be that type of place. There's a lot of guys that are reluctant, or it's just not their quote unquote. I've heard this. It's not my jam. It's the idea of being around a bunch of other guys, the idea of being in a space, it's just not many personality types to participate in something like that. But what I've discovered is that guys are always left encouraged and going, "I'm really glad I came," because if you take that first step, there's something really there's something that happens mentally that just helps men recognize that, hey, I can do this, and I can move farther down the journey and end up where I want to be on purpose.
Love it. Love it. So here's the challenge for this week, or for this, however long it takes you. Pick one sibling this week, give them one simple, just us moment, no agenda, no fixing, just time.
Amen.
I think that alone will help a lot of these the guilt moments as dads kind of resolve themselves. So,
I hope the guys will, I'd love to see the guys comment below and
absolutely,
and sharing what that looks like. What does it look like for you since listening to this podcast and having that time with a sibling? Be sure to share it below.
Yeah, we'd love to see it, because that one idea may be giving a dad another idea, saying, "Hey, I hadn't thought about that." So that's the cool thing about this is, we may meet here virtually. They may not be on Dosa Connect. They may not be at one of the in-person Dosa men's groups, but still, this is a place where men can sharpen each other, and we hope that's really what men find out of these podcasts.
Absolutely.
So cool. All right. Well, man, until we talk to you guys next time, we'll see you next time. Next time, we're going to be talking about provider pressure and the fear of dropping the ball, and really helping dads move from the constant financial and logistical anxiety to surrender and simple systems that can lighten that mental load. So that's something to look forward to in our next conversation. All right. Jeremy, talk to you then.
See you then.
That's the challenge for this episode. Pick one sibling this week and create one simple, just us moment. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be perfectly planned. It could be breakfast, a drive, a walk, a Sonic drink, throwing a ball in the yard, or 10 quiet minutes where your phone stays in your pocket and your attention stays on them. Because your kids don't always need equal minutes. They need moments that tell them, "Dad sees me, Dad enjoys me, I matter here." And for the dad carrying that guilt, remember this: being a good father doesn't mean you prevent every hurt. It means you keep showing up with love, humility, and grace. If you're a dad on special assignment, this ministry exists for you. Next time on the Dadcast, we're talking about provider pressure, the fear of dropping the ball, and how dads can move from constant anxiety towards surrender, simple systems, and a lighter mental load. We'll see you next time.